Calling the Economic Improvement Corporation to order. Today is Monday, March the 16th, 2026. And it's good to see so much public interest.
It's spring break.
So, yeah, spring break. This month, we'll see what it is next month. So Ryan's going to start us off with the invocation.
Sure. Would you bow with me, please? Heavenly Father, we come before you in the name of Jesus as we have business to conduct on behalf of the people of Kerrville. We pray that you would just give us wisdom and clarity and discernment as we proceed. Allow us to make the best decisions with the information we have, and bless this board, this city, and the administrators and employees of this city as we go about our business. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And as noted, it doesn't look like there's any visitors that have signed up.
No visitors.
So we will move to 3A, looking at the minutes from our last meeting, which was held in February. Does anybody have any additions, corrections to those minutes? All approving of the minutes, raise your hand. It's passed unanimously. And we're now to our monthly reports, and we're going to be looking at the Kerrville Economic Development Board's update, the TERS, and I guess that will be Kelly.
Hello, good afternoon. Sorry, we're in March 16th, not March 11th. So I am just going to give you all an update with what's going on with the other economic development boards, being TERS number 1 and then the Cultural Arts District. So TERS number 1, we had the exterior enhancement grant. We had 42 responses. We ended up with 24 eligible projects, and 13 projects were selected. In the application process, we asked for the applicants to tell us what their overall budget was for the upgrades that they were looking for. And so there were $1.9 million in potential upgrades just within the TERS, which I think is amazing that you have so many business owners who are kind of just looking for an opportunity to invest into the community. And there was $198,000 in grant requests. So these are all of the recipients from this round, totaling $50,000. I broke it down by the types of businesses and then what various types of projects they were looking for. Multiple of the people had many things, whether it's like, oh, my parking lot plus a sign plus some landscaping. So I kind of tallied everyone's requests within that type of project.
Could you
parking
go
lot-
back
Yeah, go back to the previous slide.
Yeah.
and look at that a little bit more closely?
So I put little dots around 2 so that everyone could see kind of, we had a good array of where the locations were in the selection.
So the first slide had more pins on it.
Those were
those were the applicants?
Yes, these were all the applicants. And it was so successful going back to the 198,000 in requests. The TERS board has approved $50,000 more dollars going into this exterior enhancement grant just for this first year, just because they really see the momentum and the number of requests. And so it won't be that much for exterior enhancement in the future, but they were really excited about the momentum we had. So I'm actually going to go back to those other projects that had not been selected, and we're going to rank those and then be able to dole out that extra $50,000.
Anybody need that sign, this one a little bit longer? Is everybody good with this? All right, thank you for going back.
And then from there, we found that there were 7 parking lots specifically that were requested. And 4 of those applicants who asked for their parking we did grant them funds for other structural signage requests that they had, but not for parking lot, because the review committee really felt like if there were that many requests, maybe we should look at using separate funding in a separate grant. So they have, so the TERS has agreed to allocate an additional $50,000 just towards parking lots. So I'm going to go back to those 7 applicants, let them know that there is the potential for some funding to come along. So we're working on that right now, and what that program policy looks like, and that agreement.
Can I ask you again about the parking lots? Was any of this flood related, or this has just more to do with our interest in that downtown area?
There were 2, Tango Homes and Wilson's were flood related. I asked them both if they had flood insurance. Of course, no one that high up has flood insurance, and so, so yes, those were the 2 that were specific to that. Cultural Arts District, so this is the new advisory board that kind of took over for Main Street. We no longer really qualified for Main Street. And the way in which Main Street supported the town, the towns didn't really work for where Kerrville is at this moment. So we shifted to a cultural arts district because so many art entities are in our downtown area. We felt like this was a greater opportunity for us to find funding and grants that can actually help our cultural arts programs and entities. So we did put in for a grant, the Arts Respond grant for branding and marketing to be able to market this new cultural district, which is right now within the downtown core bounds. And so we received $4,000 from TCA, Texas Commission of the Arts, and then another $4,000 matching from the Community Foundation. Then coming in June will be another grant opportunity, and right now this board is looking at getting more informational kiosks like the one that they have at the CVB, but to have them in various places around downtown and to have an art theme to them. Something that's really eye-catching that can be around it, or that can be around it to kind of pull people in.
Can I have a question about
Mhm.
that? So you're talking about a kiosk. Does that mean that you're going to have pamphlets in a kiosk? or
No,
what
it will all
kind
be
of-
digital. And so we can customize it to where people can see what's going on around them or coming up, like for the week or just for the night. And so all of that will be programmed through what the CVB currently is using. So we're just looking at what that cost looks like, not just to have those, but what does the maintenance look like, and additional licenses or whatever that is for however many kiosks we have. So
Do they
right
have,
now they're
like,
in the research.
touch screens? I haven't seen what CVB.
Yes, touchscreen. Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
honestly had the image in my head of the map of the mall where it says "You are here."
Yeah.
It's
And
kind
then
of
when
like
you
that.
said it was digital, I was like, okay, that's gonna be kind of cool.
Yeah, because it links to, as I understand it, the way it's going to work is that it will link to what, like the CVB has their apps and stuff like that. So it'll kind of link to that and various things going on. And we're looking to see what other kind of features it might be able to have too. You know, if you wanted to put yourself in a boundary or something like that. So
So would it be, I'm trying to picture it. I don't guess you have any kind of picture of what the CVB
no,
is.
not
like
this
that.
time, because we're meeting on the 7th, so we'll have more information. It was just, we kind of had a list of potential projects that we could apply for in June, and the kiosk seemed to be the one of most interest. So everyone's kind of doing their research right now, and then we meet on April 7th, I believe.
Okay.
And that is all I have.
Anybody else have some questions for her on this? Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we are to, oh, I missed the KEDC update. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, I don't
We're
have,
on 4B.
I've got last month's right there in front of me. I was like, what happened? Okay, we're on 4B. So this will be our EIC project status update. And Kim gets to give the really hardest information of all that we didn't actually get last month because we were still hopeful that and Kim
Okay.
is going to give this to us.
All right, well, I'm here. Michael is out, so I'm gonna be reporting on this. I'm gonna provide an update of the AC Shriner House, the Olympic Pool, Granger McDonald Park, and the Scott Shriner Golf Course. On the AC Shriner House, we did get a certificate of completion. It was issued on March 6th, 2026, so we are done with this project. I'm going to show you several slides that have pictures, so I hope that you enjoy them. This is the front of the house. There's a little AI on the grass that Aaron Yates did for us because the grass isn't all the way in there yet, but it looks very nice there with the statue. And then on the right-hand side, that's the back of the house. This is the first floor, which will be museum space. The maximum occupancy on the first floor is 72. I'll leave that up for a minute so y'all can take a look at that. Everything's shiny and bright.
Yeah, that's real pretty.
On the second floor, this will also be museum space, and the maximum occupancy is 49 on this. In this picture, you can see, let me see. Oh, yeah. In this first floor, you can see the elevator right down there in the bottom. A new feature for that building, and it's already broke down, but
Oh.
it's fixed. And I just got a text from Angela, who's over there, and she said it's stuck.
Nobody was
Oh.
in it when it broke down, right?
No.
Oh, now, and she just got a text and it's stuck again?
Yeah, it's stuck halfway open, so I'm gonna go over there with the key in a minute when I'm finished here. So the second floor is 49, and you can see on the picture on the left-hand side, that's the elevator lobby. So it kind of takes up a lot of space there on the second floor, but it's a requirement to have an elevator lobby. And then this is the third floor, which will be the staff office area, and that has a maximum occupancy of 6 people. And we did built-in desks to kind of eliminate the load of desks and tables and stuff like that. So we did some built-in desks, and they were very HHHC was very appreciative of that, and I think they look really nice.
And that red brick
Does the
on
elevator
that
go to the
looks
second
really
floor only?
good.
It goes to the third floor.
Oh, it does, okay.
Yes, it
All
does.
right.
And it actually has 4 stops because it's at the ground level, and then it has to go up about 3 feet to get to the first floor. So there's 4 stops on the
Okay.
elevator. And yes, that red brick right there, that is original, and
Here.
I wanted to keep it, so I told them, please don't paint that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it looks great. It's a
Yeah.
nice little pop in their office.
Yeah,
So when are they thinking that they'll install their exhibits?
they are working on it now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, when we got a temporary CO around January 16th, I believe, I was able to give the key to Angela, and they've been able to get in and do some measuring and do some painting and stuff like that, because they're not going to have, it's a museum, it's not going to be crispy white. It's going to have some dark features and walls with color and designs on them and stuff like that. So it does look nice being white and pristine, but it's gonna be a museum. So it's gonna look a lot different once they're finished with it.
And do they have a date that they're thinking that might be?
I don't know yet.
Open?
I think they're shooting for May, but I could be off one way or the other month.
Okay.
April's just next month, so I don't
Yeah.
think it's April.
It really does look nice driving by there
It
now.
does.
Yeah.
With Frost Bank new on the right side and, well, depending which way you're going on.
Yeah.
On the
Yeah.
riverside, the mansion looks fantastic.
Thank you.
It does. When y'all were talking about it being a White House, I just was thinking about all white, but I love the tan and
We
white.
changed the paint on the exterior so that it would look a little
Yeah.
better and
Yeah.
match the area.
Yeah, it looks really good.
All right. We'll move on to the Olympic pool. On the Olympic pool, the original allocation was $7 million. It was amended in May of '25 to 7.75 to address inflation. The recent structural voids found during the excavation has delayed the opening to summer of 2027, so we will not be opening this year. But they are, Parks is able to manage all the stabilization costs with the existing project budget, so no additional funds are needed for this project. Any questions on that?
Is that new from last meeting?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes,
Unfortunately.
found another wreck in the bottom.
yeah.
What?
Well, they found a.
What happens when you open a wall?
Yeah.
You don't know what you're gonna find.
Holes, yeah, yeah.
They found more defects.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm
Alright.
just surprised it's not gonna cost us more. I mean,
Yeah.
a 56-year-old pool?
Somebody knock on some wood up there.
have some right here.
Oh,
I mean, you never
take it.
know.
So, it's not what we want, but it's a win.
Hey, I don't disagree with you. That seems to change if you don't call it out specifically.
Yeah.
It may change.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm. Yeah,
All right, we'll move on to Granger McDonald Park. This had an allocation of $2.2 million, and it is moving into a critical operational planning phase. They're finalizing the POMA, which is the Parks Operations and Management Agreement with the Upper Guadalupe River Center to offload daily maintenance tasks. The POMA also includes a specialized 3-tier protection system for the floating piers to mitigate future flood damage and protect the city's and EIC's investment. And the POMA, if you remember, it's just a partnership agreement with UGRC for maintenance and operations of the park. Any questions on that one? Okay,
Can you
Scott,
talk more about the 3-tier
Right.
protection system?
Jay probably can.
Not too much, but I know that after the flood, we've been in communication with the Guadalupe Park, Granger McDonald Park. I got Guadalupe Park on my brain. And we wanted to see if we could mitigate future incidents, on the front end. We learned a lot about a year ago, and we just want to see if there was any engineering feats that we weren't taking into account that could possibly help the investment be a one-time investment, so we're not having to either utilize more funds from Julie and cost her more gray hairs, or come back and ask, hey, we need to do it again. So just looking to maximize the investment from this group towards that project. That's basically where we're at. We're kind of in that floating dead space where we're waiting on engineers to do their engineer thing. Blame him.
well, I guess both of us are asking, what's the reference to 3 tiers? I mean, are they looking at something to mobilize it to 3 different levels?
No, no.
Okay.
That isn't it, but that's about as much specificity as I can give you.
All right, all right.
Because I don't have a PE at the end of my name.
Anybody else have any questions?
No offense, man.
No offense.
We gotta live with you, I know.
We'll get an answer to that question about what does the 3-tiered mean for your next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, the Scott Shriner Golf Course, we have reached a milestone. We have the green flush restroom on hole 13 has been installed. That, as you know, is environmentally friendly, reduces water consumption by up to 70%, uses as little as a half a gallon of water per flush. And this week, they're going to be working on the concrete work for the cart path connections, and that is weather permitting. Hopefully, they'll be able to do that. And then as the growing season begins, staff is prioritizing greens conditioning and aesthetic standards to maximize revenue potential. And that is our update on these 4 projects.
Thank you, Kim. Any other questions? Has anybody been in the green toilet?
I have not. Jay, has anybody been in the green toilet?
Oh,
I mean, they can.
you want to talk about the green toilet, I'm your guy. I can't wait to offload that headache. It's there. If y'all have been back on 13, you'll see that it's there. I do believe that the concrete connecting the green flush restroom to the cart path is going to be installed this week. Could be wrong on that. It may be next week. It's weather dependent. This 93 degrees yesterday. I woke up, it's 34 this morning.
Yep.
So it's just wild. So depending on all that, it should be very, very soon and we're done. We can put this thing to bed.
Oh,
I don't
so
know
it's
if we
not
want to
really
cut a ribbon
complete
on a
yet.
restroom, but man, as nice as it'll be to have, it might require that. We might do like a toilet paper cut or something. I don't know. It might be funny, but yeah, we're real close on that. It's actually a pretty neat piece of tech. If you want a tour, it's not real long, but it is pretty interesting. In that back chase, there's a lot of really cool buttons and doohickeys to look at. It's a pretty neat piece of equipment, but we're getting there.
All right.
So close.
I was thinking, Kim was saying it was fully done, yeah, but it's still not fully.
Oh, it's functional. It's just not
Oh.
open because we have to have ADA access to it.
Oh,
So you gotta get the concrete work done.
Got to get the concrete work.
Got
I mean, it's there. People could use it. We just, the ADA is something we don't want to mess with.
right.
So once
Got
that concrete is cured, it's going to be open.
We're still counting it as a milestone done.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Jay. Okay. And then Trina yes.
Hello.
Trina is up. I'm sorry, I need to announce what this is. This is 4C, and this is our February 2026 monthly financial report with Trina.
Yes. All right, February activities, and we're looking at the revenue bonds. So basically, total interest revenue for the month was close to $32,000. And then your project expenditures that you paid out was a total of $378,656 for the month. And you can see golf course moving, Olympic pool, and then Callow Theater. We just had a little small lingering payment that we put out, but I believe that's almost done, complete, with final payments. And then, so that leaves your bond proceeds minus your project expenses at $8,520,000 still to go. Interest earnings minus your arbitrage liability is $1,326,000. And that's pretty much all we have on revenue bonds today. All right, moving on to your operational dollars, a statement of activities here. So, top revenue line, sales tax, is February sales tax was $557,905, and that was down 7% from last year. But last February, we had a super large audit payment that came in, so if we're comparing month to month, definitely down. But if you take that anomaly out, we're up 6%. So not too worried about that at the moment. Year-to-date earnings, $2,253,000, sorry. And that is better than estimate by about $67,000. Next revenue down is your interest income, $24,509 for the month, and year-to-date, you've earned $132,000. So we're still in the market, doing pretty good, better than estimate by about $40,000. And then you can see there on the miscellaneous line, we booked $1,119 for the Mega Crete property taxes that we're holding in a liability account. And I brought that up last month, but it actually was booked in February. Okay, so down to your expenditure section. In your miscellaneous category, we paid out $600 for to U.S. Bank for pay your admin fees. That's where your bond funds pass through, and we pay a admin fee to them every year until those bond funds are completely dissolved. And then $1,260 for your arbitrage rebate calculation. Okay, and then City of Kerrville contract, $18,000, and then your monthly debt service for $213,000. And then again, down on your project section, we paid out a Travis Street pump station for the same amount, almost $357 that we paid out to Callow. I think that is moving, and I think all the permitting and everything has happened with that, so we should be moving forward with that part. Right.
So are all the rest of those complete?
Your projects?
Under that projects?
No. Shriner University Talent Workforce, towards the end of the year, those payments are due. They will ask for a reimbursement for what expenditures they've had. And then Lennar, we're just waiting on that, I guess, just, I don't know what exactly it is, substantial completion on that infrastructure, and I know it's done because they're going vertical pretty soon here. They've issued permits on those first couple of houses, so I guess once we get that request from them, expect that probably here in the next month or so.
And that'll be a lump sum?
Yes, per the contract, it's a lump sum, 2 million this year, and then it'll be 750,000 for the next 4 years. All right, and then James Avery's, again, we're waiting on, I guess, that text dot sign off, or something of that nature. So, net change for February was $349,506 for the month. All right, cash flow forecast, not much here, just your final ending cash balance for the month is $6.5 million. And do want to notate that here in March 23rd, next week, you have $1 million investment maturity, and we plan to reinvest that as long as we can.
And what do you think that you'll invest that at?
We have an email out to our investment advisor. I think y'all can hold for a year or so. So whatever he has in a good range for about a year's 12-month holding.
And the interest rates are going back up?
No,
No.
they're kind of stagnant. 5 basis points down. Not a whole lot of change though. All right, and then financial analysis. So your top chart are your sales tax comparisons, and your rolling 12-month average right now is standing at 2%, and that's been holding pretty much the last few months that we've been watching it. Your middle chart here are your cash and investments, and the tax pool yield is 382 for February, but that was down 5 basis points from the previous month. And then the bottom chart are your remaining project commitments, and looks like, yeah, that Shriner University, I think it's $120,000 or something we pay out for the talent and workforce, and then a little bit larger payment for the athletic facilities this year. Okay, and one more slide. We threw in a 5-year cash flow just for a refresher for anything new that you may be considering here sometime soon. Just want to notate there on the blue bottom line, operating cash balance is right about $4.5 million. That's if all your projects were to pay out how they're supposed to this year that we planned on. But do want to remind you that you still have $2 million in investments that are tied up. So if those were to mature and we don't reinvest, you'll have $6.5 million.
And we were talking about, like, if we wanted to maintain $3 million as operating cash, is that what we had talked about? We wanted to maintain, and then plus investment holdings?
Yeah, I believe that was the consensus.
So really, we're looking at maybe just $1 million or 1.5 that would be eligible.
So
If we
6.5.
held $3 million in cash balance and a couple of million in investments.
It is.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Anybody have any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trina. So we'll now move to 5A, and this is to consider additional funding for the administrative services contract with the City of Kerrville to include the funding of the Economic Development Manager. And Julie is going to take this.
Good afternoon. I'm filling in for Dalton today, so hopefully I get this right. If you have any questions, stop me anytime, but I'll run through kind of the basis, where we've been, and then what we've done moving forward, and then future things that we're looking at. So back in February 2025, we brought this item to EIC for consideration, basically to cover the cost of a new economic development manager position that we hadn't had in the budget before as far as general fund expenditures. It wasn't something you guys were ready to pursue at the time. We didn't really have enough information or any true basis for how this would look and really what the overall goals would be moving forward. So in April of last year, we made some budget adjustments, and we went ahead and added this position to last year, about halfway through the year, and then made some other adjustments internally for 26 so that we could fund it for a year, really with the idea to see, is it gonna work? Like, is the return going to be what we think it's going to be for the responsibilities that were laid out for this position? So really wanted to know if it was going to be successful or not. So the key responsibilities laid out were to serve as a liaison really for businesses and stakeholders back with governments and those kind of things. This isn't something we've ever had before where businesses have had a point of contact within the city. Managing incentives programs for maybe new businesses or current businesses so that we could have better retention, and then grant applications, as Kelly has been talking about. And she talked about a few of them, but there's several really that she's been looking at. Coordinating business retention and expansion programs, attracting new businesses, downtown development, marketing and outreach, and we're finding that that is really proving to be more of one of the larger responsibilities that's happening, especially after the flood. We're finding out what businesses really need, and I don't know if it's because that has really brought it to light or that we have someone who's out there talking to people now. And then developing and implementing strategic plans, so really helping us with future planning goals. She worked a lot with Drew and his team when we were doing downtown comp plan updates and then citywide comp plan updates as well. So the benefits of this position, having somebody dedicated, it really ensures that we're focused on businesses within the city. So KEDC is countywide. And they're really looking at primary jobs. And so this gives them the ability to do that while we really focus on retaining the businesses we have and attracting new businesses that will generate sales tax growth in the city. It is a city council priority for sustainable economic growth. And then really the small businesses are who we're seeing is taking advantage of this position the most for resources, incentives, grants that we've talked about, and then really how do we help them grow either into a larger location, into a better location, or just improve the location they're in so that they're more sustainable. So accomplishments since we have put this position in place, really again just to serve as that point of contact for small businesses especially. She's done a lot of property location, managed zoning and permits, so that process can be kind of complicated if it's not something you work in quite a bit. So kind of serving as the liaison there to help them through processes that they may not be used to. Looking for funding opportunities and incentives, whether that's internal or at the state level or otherwise, for them to help grow their businesses. And then I think, as we mentioned, the flood, it kind of gave us an opportunity to get to know people better. And so we have some relationships now with businesses that just weren't there before. And so what can that lead to in the future as we really know what they need? What are their challenges? How do we keep small businesses from closing? Because yes, they're small, but every time we have one close or go out of business, there's an impact there too to sales tax, not the stat, but we have properties that are vacant and those kind of things, which is not as attractive for other businesses to move next to vacant properties. Serve as a liaison for downtown, so that's been something we've really spent a lot of time on, as that has kind of the focus of City Council, this board to a large degree, and then also TERS as focusing on keeping that vibrant community, and you can see the growth that's happened down there in the last few years, and so how do we keep that going? Strengthening coordination between the city and KEDC, like what are the goals, what are we trying to do, and how are we working together to get that done? Kelly talked about the grants. The exterior enhancement grant has been just an amazing, much larger response than we thought we would have, and my additional 80,000 there is not correct. That's what we asked for, and TERS actually came back and said 100. So this is something that they've really said, let's go out and help these small businesses who may not have the funding to keep their businesses growing. You may have the day-to-day, but you don't have any way to make improvements, and so this has given them that opportunity. She talked about the Arts and Cultural District. One of the things that also we've been working on is a grant with EDA that would basically increase our wastewater capacity, so through kind of the Sidney Baker Town Creek kind of corridor. So we talk about expansion for Tybee Commons, an apartment complex, I'm sorry that's leaving me, but also Whiskey Springs, and what that would do to us to have additional capacity on wastewater. Texas Department of Ag grant is basically another block grant for downtown revitalization, and we saw the outcomes of the last CDBG grant that we received, that we had really big success when making the downtown intersections more walkable and more ADA accessible. Leadership, Kerr County, so that's kind of a direction, is to be part of that steering committee, making connections, again, with local business owners, other city and county leaders, to kind of figure out what are the needs out there, what's happening, and how do we best serve the businesses within our area. Improve projects within the city to drive future development and tourism. So things like, how do we make walkability better, improve bathrooms downtown, it's little things like that that can make a big difference when we're trying to bring sales tax dollars into the community, maybe that aren't already here. How do we keep visitors coming here? And so those are some of the projects as well. So business attractions, Michael leads a lot of this, but there's a lot of small business attraction. We've been so focused on large business, manufacturing, those kind of things, but how do we get the small businesses here and to stay here? And then just promotion of commercial real estate. If you look around at all the vacant spaces for lease, so there's been a lot of interaction with those landlords to try to figure out if there's ways that we can work with them to either maybe reduce what they're asking or change what they're asking or what they're offering to be able to put people in those larger spaces to fill those commercial vacancies. So cost breakdown of this funding request. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of what this costs. So salary, benefits, travel and training, which would include going to trade shows, doing business recruitment, memberships that would be necessary in order to attend those kind of things, and then any small amount for materials, whether it be for distribution or creation electronically, those kind of things. Fiscal year 27, we're looking at a request of $105,000. Currently, the city contract with the EIC for administrative services, it's good through 27 as it stands right now. So fiscal year 27 without funding for this position is about $231,000. That pays for administrative stuff, finance, engineering, project management if we have it, city secretary services and those kind of things. With this position added to it, that would increase that contract to right at $335,597. The suggested timeline would be to potentially implement this in April with a prorated amount for 2026, which would be about $45,000 for the current year that we're in. So the reason for this request, general fund is, we have very restricted revenue resources, and we could talk all day about going into budget for next year, but we've been making every attempt we can to right size, to minimize costs and all of those kind of things. But I think, I know what we're seeing is just compounding expenses over time. And, that really started back, of course, right after the pandemic. And then we had, huge inflation rates. And when we have huge jumps in things like group insurance and personnel costs for market adjustments just to remain competitive to keep our staff. The compounding costs are just really creating challenges for the general fund. So we're talking about actually having to make cuts in the 2027 budget. How that looks, we don't know yet. It's way too early, but we're going to have to spend less than we have spent before to be sustainable going forward. That's just the facts. So I guess the big question is, when we're considering the budget, is this position with all the things that we really feel like comes with it, the benefits of it, is this something that is essential when we consider what are essential services that the general fund has to fund? So different than water fund or other funds that have, charges for services that can be adjusted, the general fund revenue sources are extremely restrictive. So we just don't have pots of money. So when public safety, streets, facility maintenance, and those kind of things really have to come first when we're considering services to citizens. So local resiliency committee, we met for several weeks. We had really in-depth discussions that were kind of all over the place. I think the result was, this is hard. It's super hard, and there's not a magic button that you can just say, well, let's do this, and that's going to solve all our problems. That doesn't exist. And so we just continue to turn over rocks to try to find better ways to serve the citizens with what their expectations are. We really feel like this position has a lot of value, because the hope is, after it's in place for a few years, we might really be driving some sales tax. But this takes time. And so it's not something that we can just turn on one day and within 6 months we're seeing the benefits of that. But with the grant funding opportunities that are coming up and actually having someone to spend the time, those are extremely time consuming. But to have someone to focus on those things and work with outside agencies to get that funding in here, huge benefits there. And then really focusing on what our businesses here in Kerrville need, I think, is really the other one. So we're really in the beginning phases of the 2027 budget, so I really can't speak to how that looks yet. I just wanted to point out the reasons for us bringing this back to you. So if you were to consider this, the first step would be, you guys consider it, ask questions, let's talk about the ins and outs of that, whether you were interested in potentially funding anything for the remainder of 26 or potentially 27, and we talked about those numbers. If it were approved, we could do one of two things. We could do an addendum to the current agreement, or if it was the the wish of this board, we could do a completely separate agreement that specifically outlined what we were doing here. And that could be a 1 year, a 3 year. We currently are under a 3 year with our current administrative services contract. And then from there, if this board were to approve, it would, of course, need city council approval. So happy to take any questions, talk through this with you. Kelly's here, can speak to it as well as far as what's actually happening out there in the field.
Yeah, I want to remind people that this is a discussion only. We will not be taking action in today's meeting. And so this is the time to get questions answered and to kind of bring things up that you want to talk with Julie further about, or that you have some concerns about, or something like that. So please feel free to, let's open our board for discussion.
If we were to put this into play, make this happen, approve this, and it all went the way you made it permanent, would we have to redo this every time there was a new service contract, or would it just be part of the new service contract?
That's really up to the purview of the board, and kind of what I was saying is we can either incorporate it into our current service agreement, which is really payroll driven if you think
Okay.
about it for the services you're paying for, or we could do a completely separate one if this is something that you wanted to evaluate benefits year over year, every second year, or third year, however the board really wanted to lay that out. We have multiple options.
Now Kelly would be an employee of the city, correct?
That's right.
Okay,
Mhm.
so the chances of the county pitching in some money for that is probably zero,
Probably zero because they contribute to KEDC for their service of the entire county.
correct? What about our friends at K-Pub? Do you think they would be interested in helping
They-
fund some of this?
I mean, we could certainly ask, but they do the same thing, so they're already providing funding to KEDC for the service of their primary jobs in the county. So, I mean, definitely not off the table to ask, but if you were to ask me my opinion, I would say that's probably not super
What?
viable, given their contribution.
If I heard correctly, this is a little different than what KEDC does. This is
Yes.
a much more one-on-one,
Yes,
kind of in the weeds.
that's right.
Okay.
Very focused on businesses that are here within the city. We're not, she's working with KEDC, of course, right
Sure,
now, as
sure.
whoever was in this position would be, but really focusing on what we can do to help people within the city.
So basically, KEDC is kind of like, we want to bring a lot of new people in, and this would be, we want to maintain and grow what we have, and possibly save what we have.
Right, I mean, definitely retain who we have, not to say that wouldn't be some focus on bringing in some other businesses, but that's a little sometimes bigger outreach depending on, you know, who you're working for. KEDC and those guys have big consulting firms and things that work on outreach with the state and how do we get, you know, larger employers to bring primary jobs to the area. So this is definitely more focused.
I was one of the ones who was pretty cautious about when it was presented, and part of it was I didn't understand what was coming. And a couple of things have happened since then. One is we had a flood, and we've watched this whole process, and I've been on a lot of committees having to do with flood retention and recovery. But it occurs to me that frankly, when we look at what we've spent and what we've done, has all been so heavy loaded on the expenditures as opposed to retention. And I like what I've seen about what has happened. I think we need to be supporting retention more than we've been doing. It's showing up right now, and the one-on-one has made a big difference.
That's
my
the
opinion.
feedback we're getting to from our
You know,
stakeholders and our
I'm
business
not, I
owners.
wouldn't be surprised if within a year or two it pays for itself. I mean,
That's the hope. Yes,
it
sir.
pays for itself or retains, saves enough, because business loss during this, it was predicted and it's not over. And hanging on to them is gonna be a tough one.
Right.
You
And how
know-
do we help them? Yeah.
Just my experience, before moving here and doing radio, I worked for the National Electrical Contractors Association for almost 30 years. And the contractors I represented ranged in size from a man in a truck to publicly held companies that are gigantic. And I had the opportunity to be that face with those people, and I learned things from, hey, I need these concessions with these things, to I need help finding people, to I want to grow my business and I want to do it fast, and putting them in touch with either other businesses or getting them in touch with the right people. The biggest thing we did, retirement was our biggest killer. When a owner would retire, there was sometimes no one to buy their business. There was no family, and these guys just went away, and they got absorbed into someone else somewhere. And having someone that hears that from the city and knows that, and they don't necessarily have to do it, as we all can figure, but they can sure say, hey, here are 4 attorneys that can help you plan your estate and get this thing sold, or here's a company that will help you sell your business. That kind of thing will keep those things going in our town. I see a lot of value in that, and just that alone. 'Cause like I said, I did that, and it saved a lot of people's bacon.
Thank you for that.
You know, I've bought and sold several businesses in town, and it's not an easy thing. And I don't know what Kelly's involvement would be and how to put those things together, but if you had retiring businesses that had a place to go to say, you know, in the next 3 years, I want to be out, what guidance can you give? Who do you know out there? I do think that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
There's a whole bunch of guys that are about my age that are within the next 5 to 7 years are going to be done.
And that's the idea, is let's keep things flowing, at least, like you said, just keep things from closing. How do you give them the resource? Some people just simply don't have the resources. And honestly, some things we're having to learn as we go, right? Because this is new to us
Another
too.
one that I've noted for years is a lot of complaints of local business people who come in, especially doing developmental or any kind of something that requires development or zone change. Having someone to guide them before they go before committee is very helpful. And it has cost us before, I think.
Well, and I know I'm speaking for Kelly as if, you know, she won't win the lottery tomorrow, but whomever is in this position, as of right now, she does work very closely with Drew and his team. So some things have come up that people have had questions. They simply don't know what to do. And so having somebody kind of as a go-between to guide them through that, so that they're successful when they get to that point, it's very helpful.
Oh, I really appreciate all the work that Kelly's done and what you've put out here and the actions that y'all are taking. I think it's really important, and I think it's really important for Kerrville. And I know that Kerrville is going to be facing, as a town, some real financial issues in the next 5 to 10 years even, you know, from both the flood and from the caps that are going on and on how you can get more money. And so I understand why you're here. My concern is that the EIC has always worked project-based. So you come with a project to the EIC looks up at how it fits into the charter, which is mostly, my understanding of it, is infrastructure, housing, and quality of life kinds of items that the EIC has supported in the past. And so my concern is that we would want to use some caution around taking on the responsibility of the city and taking on one of their employees. However, you know, I do think that there are possibilities that we could take a look at, you know, making an exception and creating the statement that it is an exception to what typically I think it's even an exception to the charter. We'd have to have William take a look at what the charter says about taking on responsibility for a city employee. But my understanding is that it is outside of that charter of how the EIC was first developed. But we could make an exception to that and say it's exception and take it on a year by year basis and make it so that it is reviewable every year to decide whether or not we want to do something like that. But I just am concerned about it being a bit of a slippery slope to move in that direction.
So it wouldn't be that we shifted an employee to EIC. This would still be an employee of the city. It would essentially become part of a service that basically EIC would fund as a function of the city. So you wouldn't be taking on an employee. There wouldn't be any change in that. It would just be additional funding going to the city to support this extra economic development step is basically what it would be. So there wouldn't be any change in employment or anything like that. So there would be no direction from this board as far as into having to take on an employee. That's
No,
not
I
the intent.
understand.
So, but it's fully within the realm of what EIC pays the city for now.
For services.
Correct.
Would the goal be for us to continue to fund it in perpetuity, or in 3 to 5 years, the position created enough new revenue that the city would take it back?
I mean, I think that that's part of the discussion that we have. I mean, of course, if you ask me in my position, I'm gonna say, yes, I'd love you to fund it forever.
Sure.
But I think right now, what we wanna see is, we would like to give it time to be successful and see what it really looks like. Because just like anything else that's somewhat new, and we're not even a year into this and we're already seeing the benefits of it, what is the benefit in 3 to 5 years? Do we see the return so that we have the sales tax growth enough? Which, when the city's sales tax increases, so does EIC's. And so I think there's kind of a split way to look at that. So really, again, that's for this discussion and really at the direction of this board.
It's
if it
hard
was
to
something-
quantify retention.
Exactly. If you wanted to, say, hey, we're gonna do this for a 3-year contract and we wanna see the return and then we're gonna reevaluate, I think that's reasonable. If you wanted to say, really that's for what this discussion is really for.
Is there a metrics in place that you guys are using to evaluate the success of the position now?
Well, we're tracking the activities right now, but I think with it being less than a year, it's kind of hard to set those. But I think we'll set those based on what the activities actually are, like we do in other departments. And once we kind of get a standard for what's actually happening and how are they measurable, then there'll be metrics in place, just like we have them for every department within the city, so that we can see actual result driven. Now, it's, would be hard, and some things would be hard. So let's say you have a new business come in, that's easy enough to track what their impact is to sales tax on our side. Compared to if a business went out, what's the impact there? Or if you're replacing a business, one with another, what's the differential there? Did we attract a new business, or what did this exterior enhancement grant do to the sales tax of X company or a parking lot that's new? Those things are measurable. And so there will be definitely some measurables in place, I think, once we kind of see where this is going.
It occurs to me also, there's some PR benefit. There have been a lot of complaints over time of spending money to bring in new companies and not spending money on what we got here. And that if you have something that's defined for that, it at least delays a little bit of that.
That's true. And it could bring some more projects before this board that might be exactly driven in that direction, for retention. So very possible that would be an outcome.
And the other thing to consider, and I'm just being, I guess, a devil's advocate here, but is that it sounds like a lot of what we're doing is increasing sales tax that is already circulating in our, instead of, one of the things that I had learned when I first came on the board is that we want to try as much as possible to bring new money in and new businesses in that create new sales tax versus, or manufacturing that creates sales tax here that doesn't get recirculated. I mean, it gets recirculated here, but it's not like paying Paul to.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Got it, yeah, whatever that is. So that, sales tax is either here or here, but creating and generating new, so.
I think it's a little bit of both. That really is kind of what we talked about a while ago, where KEDC's function is those bigger, more larger primary job kind of situations. You also have to think kind of at the workforce situation we're in right now is putting some constraints on that as well. If you're a business owner and trying to hire someone, that's difficult right now. And so, yes, to recirculating money already out there, but how's the growth being driven by incentives and things that we might be able to do, or what businesses aren't closing because of this. And so I think the outreach, to your point, Ryan, was let's get out there and talk to these people and find out where are their shortfalls and how do we keep their daily stressors, help them with that so that they can keep moving forward or growing, or whatever. So I think there's an old new kind of combination, because if we're growing, it really is new.
Right.
If they're staying here, then it's retention. And then if we are able to attract some small businesses, because I don't want to say that this person would never try to attract any other businesses, but it's really focused on us here and now. And KEDC is more larger scope on projects that might take 2 to 3 to 5 years. If you've, seen some of these projects that we've taken on in the last, 4 or 5 years, they take a lot of time to get those here. And so it's kind of finding a balance really between the two.
Would it be fair to say that the city has already decided that if we don't fund it, then this position's no longer there?
No,
No?
No, I don't think that's even, I know that has not been discussed. We are so early in budget discussions right now. I haven't even presented Dalton with even initial budget numbers and requests from departments. We're so early, that's not even a conversation that's been had or considered at this point. So I would
Well, I
say,
think the position is necessary. The question really is, I guess, do we want to pay for it?
right,
And
right.
so,
Where do you feel the value is? Do you feel like that's money well spent from this board and the investment that it would put to the city? And then I guess the other question is, the $100,000 or whatever, what is the benefit of having that not spent out of the general fund? What else could we do? Another police car, another, those kind of things. So you have to look at it kind of from both ways, is how is this board supporting the mission, but then also supporting the overall mission? And,
I think the only way we're gonna know if it's gonna work is if we fund it,
you know,
have some metrics for success, and then reevaluate every year or 2 or 3 or whatever we decide to do, because it's the only way we're gonna really know.
well,
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be fair to get regular reports, just like you saw today. What are you doing out there? What are you hearing? What are the conversations?
Then have a big one, like a big wrap up.
That's right. That's what we do for anything else, so
Do
I
we
think
have an
that's,
estimate about how much 4B Academy alone is gonna be bringing in?
we don't, we have some preliminary estimates. I wouldn't want to speak to that right now. Remember, there's also some rebate there, with the agreement with the mall, for a short period of time, and we looked at it the other day. It's a max of 150,000 we would pay back to them per year, a max. And I can't remember what the total cap was. I think it was 500,000. Is that right? We just looked at it the other day. I think it was a 500,000 cap, but no more than 150,000 a year that we would pay back. So we've kind of looked at what our sales taxpayers look like right now and how we feel like they would fit in based on the information we have, but I would hate to speculate. We're hoping that it will be a substantial improvement.
So one of the things that Denny had asked about last meeting, and that I think we would all still like to see, is any kind of projections that you have on Whiskey Springs. And so I don't know what the timeline of that would be.
So that's coming. So part of our 5-year forecast and budget is trying to figure out over time, what's the property value going to add to the roll? What's the offset by the TERS that, of course, that's going to be rebatted back to the developer? And then as far as when is their retail going to come online? And so they're, still working with TCEQ and those kind of things to get that project moving. There's a lot more to that I don't know near enough about to speak to. But those are all part of our forecasting projections, and those are coming. But understand that's not a month-long thing. That's like 6 months. So that's not something you can ask for today that we can produce to you next month. There's a lot that goes into that. It is working. That's something we work on in our projections all the time. It's just too early to speak to those.
Right.
But it is coming, and it is part of what we have to consider as we're considering revenues 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and those kind of things, because there's multiple sides to that.
With the new wastewater coming down, if it would happen, coming down Sidney Baker, with Whiskey Springs property plus the retail and in Kyvie Commons,
Yeah,
that alone, I mean,
that's gonna open up a lot.
that's gonna be huge. I don't know how much city involvement will be needed as far as, I mean, I think once those things are available to develop, you build it, they'll come kind of a thing, If we have the sewer water for people to do the development, then they'll do it.
Yeah, and I think there's the biggest thing there, at least on the near term, is the time investment in getting that grant put together and submitted. I know that Michael has been talking to those developers and asked them to pony up the matching component of that. So if all those things align, but there's going to be a big time investment in getting that grant done, which we're in the process of now. And so Michael and Kelly have been working with a consultant to try to help us get that over the hump, because it's a big grant, like close to $5 million. So it would be a huge project, but to your point, that opens up a lot of doors if we can put capacity out there. So that would be something that would definitely be near term on this person's
That
responsibilities.
southeast corner of I-10 and Sidney Baker there, that was kind of a messed up deal several years ago, that may open that back up for development too.
Mhm. It opens a lot of things if we have wastewater capacity, but funding that wastewater capacity it's a giant undertaking because of how expensive it is. So with these grants on the table, we never like to turn down free money, especially if we can get outside funding for the match. That's even better. So that's something that we already have that in progress. It's just we're still a little bit too early to bring you updates on that yet because of the process and putting together the details of that grant.
Would our money be better well spent helping with that project than funding the position?
I think that we're looking at grants from outside sources. I think really there's kind of an ask to get the developers involved because it's gonna help them. Because without the capacity, they're not able to move forward with what they wanna do either. So I would say I would let Michael do his work first and see, because I know he's working on that hard. Any other questions? So I think really kind of what I was looking for is just not action, but a consensus on what you would like us to bring back or not to bring back as far as A, is there even an interest? B, how would you like this presented back to you in the form of an agreement, an addendum, kind of without taking action so that I know what my homework is?
So what I'm hearing is, I think we still want to hear from our city attorney about how this fits in with the original charter. And what I'm hearing is that there is at least a positive, there is definitely a positive appreciation for the position. So there is that. And that there is some support for looking at the potential for a limited time, making an agreement that's a limited time. That might be a separate agreement than
Okay.
the services agreement.
Okay, and when you say charter, you're talking about the bylaws of the EIC?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we can certainly take a look at that with William and make sure everything lines up. But again, just to be clear, it's not an employee of the EIC. It would just be part of what you're already paying. It would just be an expansion of that.
Right. No, I understand. It
Like
wouldn't be an employee.
administrative services, so
Right.
same, just an addition to.
Right, just
Okay.
kind of a little bit different, not quite so direct.
Okay,
Like your position and what the financial does for EIC is really direct. I mean, you can see
Mhm.
exactly what that is.
and the hope is this would be too over time, but I think
Right.
to Beck's point, you don't know until you do it.
Right.
There's there's always a risk. I mean, with everything, there's a risk, but
So
I think in this
there is
case.
definitely an openness
Okay,
to, unless I'm misreading
I think we ought to pursue it.
okay.
the group.
I do
So
too.
Okay.
we'll get with William, make sure everything lines up, and then bring something back to you in the way that you're expressing it to me in form of a separate agreement, something that's, shorter, a separate agreement from our administrative services agreement with some parameters. So we'll
Right.
look at that and then bring that back to you.
Right, and then consider, some metrics, and it may, like, you don't have to have exact metrics, but like, how you're kind of looking towards.
Sure,
You'd be looking at, how to see how well it's working.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's something we would do anyway. It may be a little bit early, so that may be rough.
Right.
But until you kind of get into the thick of it, it's hard to decide what
Sure.
your measurables are, but we
Totally
can certainly give
understand
you
that.
some ideas on that.
Do
Okay.
other cities our size have this position?
Some do. I don't want to benchmark and tell you who does and who doesn't. I know there was a lot of research done into that before we added this position, but I can certainly bring that back as well.
Be interesting to see how they
Yeah.
look at success. What
Right.
they use to measure that.
Yeah, and every city's so different, and what we have found when we try to benchmark things for budget is every city's a little different, so it depends on, a lot of cities don't have an EIC like you guys. They'll have more of an economic development department within the general fund, but they don't segregate their sales tax into that. And some don't have a KEDC, and some have only an EDC. So it's kind of hard to see, especially when you have what I'm going to call smaller cities like us. So, but I'll bring you back some information on that just so we have something to compare to. Okay, any other direction? Okay, we have homework. Thank you.
I'll tell Dalton you did a really great job.
He did. I think he did.
Okay, so Kelly, you're up to talk about the contract with the retail coach.
So yes, Michael and I had originally come to y'all to kind of talk about a few things that we were looking for potentially EIC to consider funding. Retail Coach is one of them. This is the company that we use to analyze our retail leakage, which I'll just go through the whole presentation. Julie confirmed with me since last time that we did have funding in the budget for this, so I don't think we need to rely on EIC funding for it, so we're good. But whenever we move forward with Retail Coach, I'm hoping in the next couple of months we can, within 30 days, we can have a recap. And so Retail Coach, they will just do a diagram of where your trade area is.
Let's go back, please.
And so we had used Retail Coach before 2018 and 2020, and they had helped us to better understand some of our demographics and what our retail trade area, and then a breakdown of some of our retail leakage.
What does that term mean? Leakage, retail leakage?
Whenever someone goes outside of your region and buys things outside of your region because you don't have it available, like how much are people spending outside of your region due to an amenity or a service or a product that you don't have? And so this was from 2020. This was the retail area that they had identified. And then, for instance, I had pulled this out specifically whenever it came to sporting goods. This was what they were talking about in potential sales that we were losing. So potential sales being the leakage. And that's kind of where the whole conversation about Academy had come from. Because whenever you look at the average of Academy sales for an area like this community, you know, they were able to cover a lot of that leakage.
That's per year?
I believe so.
Sales, not sales tax.
Yeah, that's sales.
So on that list, there's some overlapping. So it's kind of interesting how,
Almost
because they have like the
$30 million.
Yeah.
bit of
Sporting goods
overlap, like
stuff.
sporting goods, hobby, musical, bookstores, and then down below you have bookstores, you have sporting goods stores, and you have hobby stores, musical stores. So
Huh.
I just wonder if that's,
Mhm. And then this was just back to the scope of work, but we do not need to take action. We can actually pull this, and then hopefully we're going to move forward with the contract because we were able to figure that out within the current budget. And so we're going to move forward, and then they're going to give us 20 days. We'll have the report. So hopefully maybe not the next time that we meet, but the time after that.
so what would you do, Kelly, with that report? Like what kinds of actions would that generate for you?
That would just help us to better understand what areas we probably need to better identify whenever we talk. So for instance, Michael and I were just at ICSC, and so we were talking to various retailers. And so whenever it comes down to, one developer was telling me that they would like to see a workout facility that was very honed in, almost kind of like an Orange Theory type thing. And so it's like, okay, well, do we have the demographics for that? What does it actually show? Are people really going out for something like that? So that we can better identify, like, is that really where me as economic development should be putting my resources? Or is it a family entertainment center? Because we don't have family entertainment. I should look back and see how much money has been taken out from family. I just know it is, and I know it's huge.
Ding,
And
ding, ding,
so,
ding.
yeah, and so just a better guide for Michael and I of where our focus should be at this time.
Great, interesting.
So, but no action is needed. So, that's it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Kelly?
You're welcome.
Okay, so I had one other thing that came up in our conversation earlier. Oh, so for an agenda item for next time that you could speak with Michael about is to get more clarification on what the 3-tier approach is on the Granger McDonald Park for flood damage mitigation. Are there any other things that people would like to see on the agenda, on future agendas? So they know about the Whiskey Springs, and so Julie will be coming up with that whenever that happens, but it will be that, and I assume that also you'll be coming up with something for the academy that you can share with us.
Give me time.
Whenever,
It's not
yeah.
something that I can-
It's not top on
I
the,
can't create that overnight.
no,
That
we
takes
got
time.
it. At some point in time in the future. we'll do it.
I can promise you no overnight.
Yeah.
It's definitely in our forecast.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, well, we're closing the meeting at 5:10. Okay.